By 1979, Griselda Blanco controlled the Miami cocaine corridor with an iron fist, $80 million monthly revenue, over 200 murders attributed to her organization. Newspapers called her the Godmother of Cocaine. DEA files showed her arrest photos, cold expression, expensive jewelry always visible, particularly a gold Cartier bracelet she wore in every surveillance photograph. The public saw ruthless queenpin. Rivals saw something else, a woman fighting for respect in a male-dominated cartel world where every sign of weakness meant death. Behind closed doors in Medellín penthouses and Miami safe houses, she constantly tested loyalty and eliminated threats. The bracelet, engraved GB 1978, became her signature. That same week in May, a mid-level dealer made a fatal calculation during negotiations. He grabbed her wrist, tried physical intimidation. What the press never knew, that single gesture triggered a 72-hour countdown. The dealer's severed arm was delivered to his mother in a gift box, Griselda's bracelet still gleaming on the dead flesh. The same bracelet would appear in evidence photos 6 years later when she was finally arrested. One touch, one warning, one legend. In the spring of 1979, Griselda Blanco sat at the apex of the cocaine trade between Colombia and the United States. She'd started in Medellín 4 years earlier, building a distribution network through strategic violence and absolute intolerance for disrespect. Her innovations became cartel legend, motorcycle assassins who could disappear into traffic after a hit, public executions designed to send messages, torture methods that made even hardened criminals hesitate. The gold Cartier bracelet arrived as a gift from Carlos Leda in 1978, after a successful shipment moved 300 kilos through Miami without a single arrest. She had it engraved GB 1978 on the inner surface where only she could see it. The bracelet became her constant companion, worn during meetings, during hits she personally supervised, during the rare moments when she allowed herself to relax in her Medellín penthouse. People close to her said she touched it constantly, a nervous habit that betrayed the pressure of running an empire built on fear. In a world where men controlled 99% of the cocaine trade, Griselda had carved out her territory through ruthlessness that exceeded theirs. The bracelet reminded her, stay harder, stay colder, stay untouchable. Eduardo Marquez was 28 years old in May 1979, moving approximately 50 kilograms of cocaine monthly through Medellín distribution channels. He considered himself successful, enough money to afford a penthouse apartment in El Poblado, a girlfriend who modeled part-time, a BMW parked in the building's underground garage. He'd heard stories about Griselda Blanco, everyone had, but he'd never dealt with her directly. When the invitation came for a meeting about potential Miami distribution, he accepted immediately. The meeting was scheduled for May 14 at a neutral location, a penthouse in Laureles, owned by a respected broker. 6 other distributors would attend. The topic, coordinating shipments to avoid DEA attention and maximize profit margins. Marquez prepared by studying recent arrest patterns and calculating his leverage. He wanted a larger percentage, felt entitled to it based on his track record. What he didn't prepare for was sitting across from a woman who'd built her empire on making examples of men who underestimated her. The bracelet would be the last thing he noticed before making the worst decision of his life. Architected multi-act narrative structure with precise word targets. I need to continue with Chapter 3, which is the critical moment of the touch that changed everything. This should be around 180 words to complete Act 1 at approximately 540 words total. Then, Act 2 needs to be 5 chapters, 4 to 8, at approximately 280 words each, equals 1,400 words total. We continue writing carefully, making sure each chapter hits its target while maintaining the cinematic, confident tone and including all the required elements. The meeting started at 2 p.m. Griselda sat at the head of the table in a cream-colored suit, the gold bracelet visible on her left wrist. She opened with numbers: current Miami capacity, projected growth, profit splits. Marquez listened, calculating his angle. When she proposed terms, he objected. "You're asking too much," he said, voice rising slightly. She stayed calm, adjusted the bracelet with her right hand, a gesture so casual nobody registered it as significant. Made a counter-offer. Marquez felt pressure building. 6 men watched this exchange. In his mind, staying silent meant weakness. Accepting her terms meant submission. He made his choice in half a second. Reached across the polished table, grabbed her wrist. Squeezed hard, not violent exactly, but firm enough to make the point. "You're asking too much," he repeated while gripping her. The room froze. Complete silence. You could hear traffic noise from the street 12 floors below. Griselda looked at his hand on her wrist, then slowly, deliberately, looked at his face. Pulled her arm away without hurrying, stood up without speaking. "We're done here," she said quietly. Walked out. The bracelet caught afternoon sunlight as she disappeared through the door. The 6 witnesses knew immediately Marquez had just signed his death warrant. Griselda drove straight from the meeting to a safe house in Envigado, a working-class district where she kept her most trusted enforcer. Miguelito had known her since childhood in the Medellín slums, 30-plus kills attributed to him, 0 arrests. She walked in, poured herself whiskey from a bottle on the counter, and said 5 words. "The one who grabbed me." Miguelito asked which one. She described Marquez, the BMW, the El Poblado apartment, the model girlfriend. "Make it memorable," she added. No yelling, no dramatic emotion, just a cold directive delivered in the same tone she'd use ordering coffee. By 6 p.m. that evening, 4 men were positioned outside Marquez's apartment building. Surveillance protocol: track his movements, wait for the right moment, make it clean. While they watched, Marquez was celebrating at a bar 3 blocks away. Told his friends he'd stood up to Griselda Blanco. Said someone needed to show strength, couldn't let a woman dictate terms. His exact words: "She's just a woman. Someone had to put her in her place." Those words reached Griselda through her network within 3 hours. She smiled when she heard them. Touched the bracelet. Waited. May 15th, 1979. Marquez woke up in his girlfriend's apartment, hungover but confident. Spent the morning meeting with suppliers about an upcoming shipment. Afternoon at the apartment, swimming pool, drinks by the rooftop. Evening plans. Zona Rosa nightclub in Bogotá with 3 friends. He mentioned the Griselda meeting casually, framed it as a victory. "She walked out because I held firm," he told his girlfriend. "Respect is everything in this business." Griselda's surveillance team followed every move. Miguelito received hourly updates, where Marquez ate lunch, which pharmacy he stopped at, what time he left for Bogotá. The nightclub was perfect. Public enough that he'd feel safe, crowded enough that a quick extraction would go unnoticed in the chaos. Miguelito called Griselda at 8 p.m. with the plan. She asked one question. When? He said 1:30 a.m. after Marquez would be drunk enough to be slow, but before the club closed. She approved, hung up, poured another whiskey. The bracelet sat on the table beside her glass. She'd removed it for the first time in months, examined the engraving in the lamplight. GB 1978. The year she'd proven herself to Carlos Leda by personally executing a Miami distributor who'd shorted a payment. The year men in the cartel started using her name with the same fear they reserved for Pablo Escobar. The bracelet wasn't jewelry. It was a reminder of the price of disrespect. By morning, Marquez would understand that price exactly. 1:30 a.m. May 16th. Marquez stumbled out of Zona Rosa with two friends, laughing about something nobody would remember. The parking lot was half empty, sodium lights casting orange shadows across the asphalt. Four men approached from different angles, professional, practiced, fast. One grabbed Marquez from behind, arm around his throat. Second man hit him with a syringe, ketamine, enough to drop him without killing him. His friends scattered, thinking it was a robbery. By the time they looked back, Marquez was already being loaded into a white van, gone in 45 seconds. The van drove south toward Medellín, arriving at an industrial warehouse in Itagüí just before 3 a.m. Marquez woke up tied to a metal chair, head clearing slowly from the drugs. Miguelito stood in front of him with a table of medical instruments laid out like a surgeon's tray: bone saw, scalpels, cauterizing iron, morphine, not for mercy, for keeping him conscious. "You grabbed the wrong wrist," Miguelito said. That's when Marquez understood, started begging, offered money, $50,000, $100,000, everything he had. Miguelito ignored him. A doctor walked in, cartel paid, performed these procedures regularly, never asked questions. The doctor examined Marquez's right arm, the same arm that had grabbed Griselda. Drew a line with a marker at the shoulder joint. Marquez screamed, begged, promised anything. The doctor prepared the saw. "If you're hooked now, wait. This gets darker." The warehouse in Itagüí's industrial zone had been soundproofed specifically for this purpose. Concrete walls, no windows, steel door. What happened inside stayed inside. The amputation took 40 minutes, longer than a typical procedure, because the doctor worked carefully to minimize bleeding and keep Marquez conscious throughout. The arm was removed at the shoulder, the wound cauterized immediately with a heated iron to prevent him from bleeding out. Marquez screamed until his voice gave out, then just made choking sounds. The doctor administered stimulants twice when he started losing consciousness. They wanted him aware, wanted him to watch his own arm being placed in a cooler filled with ice. Miguelito photographed every stage, evidence for Griselda that the job was done correctly. After the arm was secured, they moved to the second phase. The gold Cartier bracelet, Griselda's personal bracelet, the one she'd been wearing during the meeting, was brought out and placed on the severed arm's wrist. It fit perfectly, gleaming against the grey-white flesh. "She wants his mother to see this," Miguelito explained to the doctor. The message needed to be crystal clear. This wasn't random violence. This was personal retribution, with Griselda's signature literally attached. They packaged the arm in a plain cardboard box, wrapped in brown paper like a gift. Marquez was still alive, still conscious, watching them prepare the delivery. "Your mother lives on Calle 45, Miguelito told him. "She'll get this tomorrow morning." Then they gave him one final injection, this one lethal. His body would be dumped in the Medellín River before dawn, but the arm had a different destination. May 17th, 1979, 9 a.m. A courier knocked on the door of a modest house in Medellín's southern suburbs. An elderly woman answered, Marquez's mother, living on the pension from her late husband and money her son sent monthly. The courier handed her the box, said nothing, walked back to his motorcycle and disappeared. She carried the box to her kitchen table, opened it. Inside, her son's arm, still fresh, still wearing an expensive gold bracelet she'd never seen before. A note was pinned directly through the flesh with a sewing needle. "You raised him wrong. GB!" Her screams were heard 3 blocks away. Neighbors called police. Officers arrived within 20 minutes, found her collapsed on the kitchen floor, the box open on the table. They recognized the signature immediately. Everyone in Medellín law enforcement knew what GB meant. One officer photographed the arm and the bracelet for the report. Another called his supervisor. Within an hour, the decision came down from the police chief. File the report, catalogue the evidence, close the case. No investigation. Griselda Blanco was untouchable in 1979. She had judges, politicians, and police commanders on her payroll. More importantly, she had a reputation for killing anyone who interfered with her business, including cops. The arm was logged as evidence item number M-79-1847. The bracelet was noted in the report, gold Cartier bracelet, engraved GB 1978, attached to severed limb. 3 days later, an intermediary returned the bracelet to Griselda through a trusted courier. She had it professionally cleaned, blood removed, gold polished, until it gleamed like new. Wore it again the next day, May 18th, 1979, early morning. A fisherman working the Medellín River near the Puente de la Madre found Marquez's body caught in debris along the bank. Missing the right arm, single gunshot wound to the head, execution style. Police filed another report, case number M-79-1851, connected it to the arm delivery from the previous day, officially closed both cases within 48 hours. Cause of death, homicide related to narcotics trafficking, no suspects listed. The story spread through Colombia's cocaine networks faster than any official report could travel. Distributors in Medellín, Cali, and Bogotá heard within 24 hours. Mid-level dealer grabbed Griselda Blanco's wrist. 72 hours later, his arm was delivered to his mother wearing her personal bracelet. The message was unmistakable. Physical contact with Griselda meant death, and she'd mark your body with her signature to make sure everyone knew who ordered it. Other dealers adjusted their behavior immediately. Men who'd never worried about handshakes started keeping distance. Business meetings that used to involve casual physical contact, shoulder grabs, arm touches, the typical machismo of cartel negotiations, became formal and distant. Griselda noticed the change, used it strategically, started adjusting the bracelet during tense moments in negotiations, a deliberate gesture that made men remember what happened to Marquez, closed deals on better terms, expanded her Miami territory by 40% over the next 3 months. The bracelet became her most effective weapon, without her ever having to explicitly threaten anyone. They saw the gold gleaming on her wrist and remembered the photographs police had taken of Marquez's severed arm. June 1979. Griselda's reputation underwent a transformation that even she hadn't fully anticipated. She'd always been feared. That was the foundation of her power. But now she'd crossed into a different category. Men who'd considered challenging her reconsidered. Rivals who'd planned to encroach on her territory backed off. She became, in the language of the cartels, untouchable. The bracelet became symbol and weapon simultaneously. During a July meeting with Pablo Escobar's representatives about territory disputes, she adjusted the bracelet 3 times while discussing terms. The representatives agreed to her demands without counteroffer. Word reached the DEA in Miami through informants who couldn't believe what they were hearing. Agent reports from August 1979 noted, subject displays unusual fixation on jewelry, particularly gold bracelet worn on left wrist. Informants indicate this item has symbolic significance within organization, possibly related to recent violence in Medellín. Recommend further surveillance. But the DEA didn't know the real story, didn't know about Marquez, about the severed arm, about the bracelet as signature. They just saw expensive jewelry on a wealthy criminal. By autumn, Griselda's Miami operations were generating over $100 million annually. The bracelet stayed on her wrist through every meeting, every negotiation, every decision that built her empire higher. 1980 brought intensified DEA focus on Griselda's organization. An informant, a low-level distributor facing 20 years, told agents about the Marquez incident, told them about the arm, the bracelet, the message. The agents didn't believe him initially. It sounded too theatrical, too Hollywood. But the informant insisted, provided dates and names. DEA contacted Bogotá police, requested files. Case number M-79-18. 4-7 came back. Severed arm, note signed GB, gold bracelet described in evidence log. Medical examiner's report confirmed. Amputation performed by individual with surgical knowledge, wound cauterized to prevent exsanguination, victim likely conscious during procedure. The FBI opened a new file on Griselda that included the Marquez case as evidence of unprecedented ruthlessness and willingness to use torture as organizational messaging. Photographs from the Bogotá crime scene showed the arm in detail, the bracelet clearly visible, engraving too small to read in the photos but noted in the report. Multiple witness statements mentioned Griselda's habit of wearing and adjusting the bracelet during meetings. One informant claimed, "When she touches that bracelet, people remember Marquez. That's the point. She doesn't have to say anything. The bracelet says it for her." The investigation grew, but Griselda stayed in Colombia where U.S. law couldn't reach her. The bracelet stayed on her wrist, marking every photograph, every surveillance report, every witness description. February 1985. After years of surveillance and coordination with Colombian authorities, DEA agents arrested Griselda Blanco in Irvine, California, at a house she'd rented under an assumed name. The raid was surgical. Agents surrounded the property at dawn, broke through the front door, secured her before she could reach any weapons. They catalogued everything: cash, documents, weapons, and jewelry. Among the jewelry, one gold Cartier bracelet, logged as evidence item number A-1985-347. The evidence tag noted gold bracelet, Cartier brand, engraved GB 1978 on interior surface, estimated value $30,000. During interrogation, an agent mentioned Marquez, asked her directly about the 1979 incident. Griselda smiled, the first emotion she'd shown in 6 hours of questioning. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said. "I've never been to Medellín in May 1979. You can't prove I was." She was technically correct. No physical evidence placed her at the scene. The arm had been destroyed after photographing. Marquez's body had been cremated by his family. The bracelet proved nothing except that she owned expensive jewelry. Her trial lasted 4 months. Prosecutors presented evidence of drug trafficking, money laundering, conspiracy to commit murder. The Marquez incident was mentioned but couldn't be proven. She was convicted on drug charges, sentenced to 20 years in federal prison. The federal government sold Griselda's seized assets at auction in 1987. The bracelet, evidence item number A-1985-347, sold to a private collector for $48,000. No records exist of where it went after that. Griselda served 19 years, was released in 2004, and deported immediately to Colombia. She settled in Medellín, living quietly in a modest apartment, kept low profile for 8 years. September 3rd, 2012, she was killed by a motorcycle assassin outside a butcher shop, the same method she'd pioneered decades earlier. Shot twice in the head, died instantly at age 69. The story became legend in narco culture. Cartel leaders still reference it. Never touch the Godmother. Young distributors hear the story during training. One gesture of disrespect, 72 hours, one severed arm. The bracelet became ghost, mentioned in DEA files and cartel folklore, but lost to time. Marquez's mother died in 1991, never recovered from the trauma of that morning. in May 1979. Some say she kept newspaper clippings about Griselda's eventual arrest, took small satisfaction in knowing her son's killer faced justice. Others claim she burned everything connected to her son, tried to forget. The truth is, somewhere between. Museum exhibits about Colombian drug cartels don't mention the bracelet. Too small a detail in a story built on billions of dollars and thousands of deaths. But dealers in Medellín still tell the story, still describe the gold Cartier bracelet gleaming on grey flesh, still remember that one touch of disrespect cost everything. The bracelet survived. The man who grabbed it didn't. And Griselda, she wore that bracelet every single day for 6 years after Marquez died. Is what people remember. Respect is what people forget. The bracelet proved you could manufacture both with gold and flesh.